Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the podcast. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a good day. I wanted to invite Sam and Willen onto the podcast to talk about our relationship, how it's changed, how it's kind of tweaked, and some of the things which I think is important if you're going to be outsourcing anything to anyone, because as you may have known by now, they actually edit my podcast for me. So I wanted to, well, first to give them an opportunity to talk about that process, but also give them an opportunity to explain what they feel is really important whenever one or a business would try to outsource anything.
Okay, hello, my name is Willen Stewart, or the real W. Willen 14, you might know me by. I'm a filmmaker with
Snowy the Dog Photography, coming to you live and direct. Filmmaker as well, student, Salisbury, and full-time creative.
Absolutely, I love it. And today I wanted to bring them on the podcast to talk about our relationship mostly, how it's changed, how it's developed, how it's grown, and also give the guys an opportunity to really kind of showcase and tell their side of the story, because I've told my side, to be honest with you. I've told my side in two videos that I created on the channel, that you can see in the description down below if you're interested. But so whichever one of you wants to go first, let's start with the story, right? So how was the story? How was it? Like, how did it come to fruition, I guess would be the question there.
All right, so the first time that I interacted with Brunton Media and Carlton was me taking a photo, putting the location tag at Salisbury, Wiltshire, and then I had him in my comments section saying, like, love the location. And I thought, oh, that's nice. Click on the profile, and you see a sort of a media production company as it appears on the social feed, giving me feedback on one of my photos, which was taken on my phone at the time, I believe. And so that was the first interaction. And then, it snowballs. And as both Willen and I started using the Salisbury location tag more and more, and sort of engaging with Salisbury and establishing ourselves as Salisbury creatives, we naturally sort of began to interact with Brunton a fair bit more. And we call him Brunton because he's Brunton Media. I know that he's Carl or Carlton to some people, but he's Brunton to us. But yeah, as we put ourselves out there more and more and more, we have interacted with other people who are putting themselves out there, other creatives, other people who are spending their time improving and being a creative and being on the journey to full-time creating. You naturally sort of gravitate towards people who are interested in the same stuff and also in the self-improvement aspect. So that's kind of where we're up to now.
I mean, very similar story. Pretty much the same thing happened. Obviously, as me and Sam are closely linked, it kind of happens as it goes. But the early interactions from me, at least, with Brunton Media, was kind of like, as you say, getting the comments like, yo, this is sick, and then not being like, oh, you're amazing, but like giving us things to improve, which really, really helped in the early production of what I had been doing, and just more like tips and tricks to start off with, and then as time progressed, we chatted a bit more, and then obviously things evolved into what you guys see now.
Yeah, no, so I think it's important. I think the main thing that people should take away from this is whenever you're going to do anything, right, that number one, you can't do it alone, right? Number one, you can't. It's impossible. Number two, a lot of Salisbury and and I'm sure this will be true of like Andover, Basingstoke, Southampton, wherever you are, there's a certain net of people, and it's a community-based thing. And once you establish, you understand that, you can, I guess, utilize it, share it, add value in it. But the point there is when you see people who have potential, a lot of people will go and write on a comment going, like, some really faceless, really, like, pointless, like, oh, nice picture, happy face, or etc. Oh, check out my page for blah, right? But the thing is, like, and I'll ask you both this, if I had put a comment like that instead of putting a comment like I did, would you have checked out the page?
I'm just gonna go full honesty. No, I would not. The amount of people who comment on photos saying amazing work, DM for a collab. DM for a collab are the words the devil created, okay? Because you end up getting caught in like a, because we've all done it. We've all done it, and then you're getting automatic replies from a company, and it's just not worth it. And because you have so many of those experiences putting yourself out there online, if you get a generic message, more often than not, because our time as creatives is valuable, you won't engage with it just because it's the same thing. You just get caught in the same loop. So having specific targeted feedback and also an engagement with who we are as people rather than an engagement with the intention of, oh, you should do something for us, makes all the difference in terms of how you're going to approach and interact with that person.
I think, well said, I guess. But I think, again, no, not at all. The amount of comments I've had, like, what is it? It's like, great snap, follow for the full support. It's like, that means that you do not care what I do. Like, you don't care about me, you only care about yourself. And it's like, check me out, look at what I'm doing, and then you go on the page and you're like, you know. But the fact that it's not like, the fact that it was positive as well, like, instead of just being like, oh, your composition's dead, it's like, no, you could improve on this. Like, it's not terrible, but you could improve to take it to that next level. And it helped to really set your sight on the next level instead of being like, I've just started this, what am I doing? And I think that was really supportive.
Yeah, so I think that's important, and a lot of what I do and I try to do is always, and I talk about this a lot, and you guys are going to be sick of hearing it at this point, but it's this adding value mindset, right? It's this, that you guys don't owe me shit, and I don't owe you shit, right? The reality of the fact is we have a reciprocal beneficial relationship. That's why we're working together. Whenever that relationship ends, and this is not just true here, but in any relationship with any client, with any customer, with any person you're going to work with anyone you create photos with or create videos with or whatever, when it ceases to be beneficial for either party, it will end. That might take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, 9 weeks, a year, whatever, but it will end. And the work will suffer. And the best thing to do in that case is to end it as quickly as humanly possible and either replace it with the right person. So maybe the people are wrong, right? Sometimes people are wrong, or people change, people adapt, people change. It's where, I wanted to be, they wanted to be, there and then. And then 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months down the line, okay, maybe not. Because they've developed, they've changed, they want different things, right? But when you establish that and you understand that, you have a level of gratitude. Because, and also whenever, it's the same true when you have any level of success, because you also can understand that it can disappear tomorrow, right? And an interesting question I think is and the reason why, as we talked about before, like before the podcast started, but I think also on the podcast it'd be good to talk about, is have you guys found that the outsourcing has helped you specifically grow? In regards to, this could be anything simple, in regards to edit, or it could be production, it could be how to create videos, why to create videos, etc. I'm very interested to hear, if you have grown, number one, that's the most important thing, but also then two, what elements do you feel you have actually grown in?
Okay, so for me, the biggest thing that I've grown in is more working for somebody consistently. I think that's been the thing for me. Like, you're a very understanding person. If I've been like, I simply can't do this, you're like, okay, cool, we'll get it sorted, and then we move on. But like, where it's like, the more you're not thinking about a YouTube video for for your 50 subscribers, for instance. You're thinking about somebody else's content and trying to make that the best it can possibly be, so that it doesn't make you look like you don't know what you're doing. And I think that's really important. And with the editing of the podcast, it's not like, like, I don't know how to word it, but it's not like superior level editing, but there's little things that you take from it each time. Like, there was one time I was editing one and it was like, somebody spoke over somebody. So what I did is I left half of the person who was being spoken over and clipped it so that it sounded like they like they were making a point and then the person was building from it, instead of, and like little things like that, instead of just allowing an interruption to happen. It's like it's the little things that you got to think about, where it's just that little thing that might make the overall project just seem that bit more professional, seem that bit more high level. So
Yeah, I completely agree. From value taken from the process of working together, from the outsourcing, it has to be said that just practicing collaborating with other people holds such value, because you can be putting out content for yourself and feel quite comfortable in that, but you don't know how you work with other people. You could organize a shoot with a bunch of other people, and then if you don't have any of experience it, go there and be like, why am I getting annoyed by them being themselves? And you have to practice being able to collaborate with other people, and giving it the professional setting allows for practice for us, because we're film students. We are students. We're not in the industry. We are developing and moving towards that and offer services now, but we're students, so we are learning these things. And to be given a platform to learn collaboratively, and also, I'm going to make you sound really good here, Brunton, in a very kind way, offering support wherever possible, which is what you've done. It's so valuable, because we grow, you grow from a business perspective, learning how to outsource and how to treat your staff and how that relationship benefits the business. And it's a mutually beneficial thing where everybody grows and develops as a result of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I completely agree, and I think I appreciate you saying that, number one, but also number two, I think that some people who outsource or have staff, or especially are building teams now, or have teams and then of having to let some go, some people don't. There's never that situation that, for example, I was like, okay, guys, the podcast isn't really working out, etc. Which it isn't, just to be clear. But if it was, that's never an easy conversation for anyone involved, right? It's not a nice conversation to have, but the conversation still has to fucking happen, right? But the thing is, if you've built a level of respect and you've built a level of understanding and you've built a level of care and commitment throughout the relationship with whoever those people are, you're then in a situation where that let down situation, or the things are going to have to change situation, is easier on everyone, because you haven't spewed a load of crap. You haven't said, "Oh, you're amazing," when you actually shit, and vice versa. And I think for me it's important, and that's why I keep making the point, and I've made the points in my telling of this story. It's outsourcing for me is not just, I'm going to pay you to do something. I could have gone that approach. I could have gone, guys, I need this thing done. Can you do it? Yes or no? This is what I'm going to pay you, right? But how was I guess the question there is, how was the quoting process, money process? Obviously, don't go into details, but how was that process? Because I only documented the first meeting. There was actually, if I remember correctly, there was like, I think a total of 3 in one way or another, like with all of us, and there's probably like a total of 5 if you count the ones that either me and Sam had, or me and Will had, or like, when the other person wasn't there.
So for me, from my side, the process around quoting the work, all that sort of stuff, once again, because of how kind you've been around it and how understanding you are that we are learning, we could have been in a situation where a business came along, and if they were purely profit oriented, just completely taken advantage of our inexperience. And that kind of would have been disastrous for us. We might have learned something along the way, but in terms of value given to us, it wouldn't have been as respectful. So the quotation process, we worked with people that we know who are in industry, and we'd say, how much should we charge? because our experience of charging for work is a very traditional employment sense. So like I show up, I work 9 to 5, and you pay me for 9 to 5. But creative work isn't like that. The value in the time spent is added up differently. And where we're starting out, we didn't have experience of quoting for creative time rather than just I spent 2 hours on this, so you pay me £9 or £10 an hour. That's not what quoting for creative work is like. So it offered a unique challenge in the beginning, but luckily having conversations with you, having meetings with you, obviously you documented the first one, but there were others where we sort of sat down and really got into the nitty gritty of what's the job going to entail, how long is it going to take us to do it, what value are we going to gain from working with you, not just in a monetary sense, but in terms of having your ear and asking you questions, and you using your experience, because you're further ahead in your journey than us, to kind of let us know what's going on. It was all very valuable. So that the main thing that I took away from it was experience in quoting for creative time rather than just normal 9 to 5 work, but also trying to gain perspective of the bigger picture and not just think about my hours pay, but the project as a whole and what that would entail.
So I've kind of completely forgotten the question, but I think I know what I'm talking about. So for me, it was the two words I can use to describe it were understandable and professional. Those are the things that I could do. On the professional side, it was like the quotation process, like Sam has said, is like it's that what can we do to benefit each other? Like think about the future. Like think about don't think about today. Think about next week. Think about next month. What are you going to be doing in that time? Like as time goes on, if you're constantly trying to get better, trying to become what you want to become who you want to become, you got to be moving forward. And if you're thinking about forwards instead of where you are now, you can think about, so how am I gonna quote this? Like, am I gonna quote like, as Sam said, are we students? Do we just go, oh, like, give us this, and then like 2 years later, we're still on that, and we're like, well, we asked for it in the first place, so we may as well just stay there. So you got that stuff. It's about the thinking ahead and thinking about you as well, because you can't go into one of those things, or well, I mean, maybe you can. I don't know. Like I say, I'm a student, but you can't really go into one of those things in like this. If it's not this, it's nothing. That doesn't really work. And then back on the understandable side, it was like the conversations that we had collectively and separate were trying to think of the words. They were constructive for so many aspects. Like it didn't, like, you said things and we were like, okay, and then we went away, we thought about it, we didn't give answers immediately because you were like, just do what you need to do and then get back to me, and that's the like understandable side. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's important. I think that whenever anyone, because I know there's going to be some people who are listening to this now who are like, I actually need 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, so on. I need a number of people to do stuff because my plate's too full, right? That was the reality of the fact for me, and I was like, okay. So I sat down with a good friend of mine and a coach of mine called Dave. Both of you know him. And we had a conversation basically saying, well, what actually can you pay someone to do, right? That's the process. That's how I came out about it. It wasn't just, oh, I'm just going to do this. And then through other people who I know, like Tommy and etc., I was then thinking, okay, well, how do I get those people? And are they going to work for me? As in, not work for me as in I'm going to pay you to do it, but are they going to work with me, right? They understand. And the reason why I chose both of you over others that I had options for and I could have reached out to was because for whatever reason, in the conversations we've initially had, and part of the reason why I brought you both on the podcast separately, was to sort of jam out with you, sort of see what your wants were, what your desires were, what your needs were, but also, as you both know, I see where I was in 2018, where you guys are now, right? So I know what it's like to be there, and it's fucking hard and shit for a long time without help. But that's the point that I think that a lot of people need to understand, is if you facilitate a learning environment, it doesn't matter what I'm paying you, right? Because overall, it actually doesn't matter, because if you're getting more value from the service and the relationship, it doesn't matter, because you're still going to want to continue to do it, you're still going to care, you're still going to put the extra effort in that it requires to work in creative. And by no means does that mean I'm an expert in this, and I'm not, and I'm learning every single day as well, because all that the difference is between both of you and me is I've got 2-3 years on you. That's it. That's the only difference. I have 2 to 3 years of hard work between where you are and where I am. And there may be a world, and there probably will be a world, where you boys both say to me, really appreciate what we've done, but we're going to have a conversation because we feel like we are really good at this now, or we're really good at what we do, and we need to have a conversation about money, or we need to have a conversation about this, we need to have so on. There needs to be, and I'm fully aware, I'm willing to have a conversation, of course, but also I'm ready for that conversation because I know it's going to happen. Because again, and a lot of what I try to do, and I can't remember what I said this on the podcast, but I'm going to say it now, is whenever I offer you something, or I offer anyone something, firstly, I need to know, for me, I can do it for at least 4 months, 3 to 4 months. As in, I have the money to pay for it now, right? And I don't like this mindset. I'm not calling anyone out here, but I don't like this mindset of we're going to hire you and hope the fuck we make the money to pay you. It's like, well, that's not a good way to run a business, number one, but also number two, not a good thing for the people involved, right? Because they're going to put in the time and the energy and the effort expecting to get paid when you say they're going to get paid, right? Number one. But also number two, you need to, if you're going to offer anyone anything, you need to be empathetic to where they are. And I always, building off what Sam was talking about, potentially I could have come out, but there's a very different way. I could have come to you and gone, look, I've got this wonderful learning opportunity, guys. You can learn loads and all this, but there's going to be no money on the table. Right, and there wasn't at the start. Can we just add, and I'll get you both to elaborate on it this, in this. But I always ask, if I was in their position, right, as in me 3 years ago or 2 years ago or whatever it was, would I say yes to this person, right? So, and if the answer is no, I can't expect you to say yes. You know, I mean, there's no question there. I think. But I'm just going to throw it back to you both to see how the conversation gets built off, because there isn't a natural progression to a question there, but I just throw it back to you and see what your thoughts are on that, and we'll kind of go from there.
So basically, one thing that happens when you're just starting out, I'm sure you've experienced this, Brunton, is when somebody comes to you and says, I've got this, you're like, I have no experience. You can't get experience without a job, and you can't get a job without experience. So somebody takes a little bit of a chance.
Chicken and the egg situation.
Exactly.
It's good, isn't it?
Somebody takes a little bit of a chance. They're like, I can do this for you. I can give you nothing, though. You gain experience, but I can give you nothing from it. You kind of need to say yes to a lot of those situations. But what was good, and what I still enjoy about this situation, well, calling it a situation makes it seem quite robotic, but about
this relationship,
the relationship, the arrangement is that it's not that we need to say yes, it's that we enjoy saying yes, because it's good. It helps on pretty much all levels. Like, for instance, if I didn't do this editing for you, I probably wouldn't have bought a new laptop that can edit better, because I wouldn't have really needed to. Like, yes, I could have done, but I wouldn't have had to think, I've got to edit for this person, do I have the capability to? And it comes back to that thing in a head thing, but like, where at the start you were like, I want to see how it goes. Like, we might do a couple, like, we'll see how it's going, then we'll come back, we'll have another chat, we'll think about and talk about what we want to do. Are you enjoying it? Am I enjoying it? And I thought that was really good. It allowed a kind of like a O&T, open and transparent approach to everything, where it's like, do you want to continue? Not do you need to, do you want to? And I think that was a really big thing for me, and it still is, because it, like I say, I don't, as much as I need experience, I don't need to say yes to this. I enjoy it, so I want to say yes.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic point. One of the richest women in the world has been quoted saying, "The success of your business is defined by how well you treat your team." You know, and I think that's something that, in terms of the getting to know each other and all that sort of stuff, we're very slowly establishing about each other. Is, do we all kind of feel the same way about the approach to business, and how compatible is our outlook on business in terms of collaborating with one another? Because all the, as you mentioned, bringing us on the podcast separately, sort of interacting over social media and that sort of stuff, it's all very slowly trying to figure out, you know, like, okay, so I agree with this person on this thing. Is there room to grow into a professional relationship? And I think that's honestly really important. It is, more often than not, the relationships, and this isn't just in a professional setting, but in life as well, the relationships that you rush into often blow up in your face, because you haven't taken the time to truly understand each other's morals, values, and even ask yourself whether you're compatible. If you go into something without thinking about it, it more often than not blows up in your face. So having all of those conversations, all of the slow interactions, the podcasts, all that sort of stuff, it builds to this point where you're thinking to yourself, Brunton, do you know what? I think that I could work with these guys. I think that we share some of the same opinions about stuff and some of the same values when it comes to business. And we also have the opportunity to think to ourselves, do you know what? I quite enjoy interacting with this Brunton guy. I'm enjoying the conversations that we're having. I believe that there's value in the relationship, and that sort of drip feed over time has grown into what it is now. And something that Willem was saying, which I also want to build off, is because of the fact that we're being paid for it, there's an extra level of care that we're taking over it. You could have said to us, hey, I'll pay you an exposure. And we've all seen the memes, you know, of people saying like exposure is worthless. You know what I mean? But at the same time, we did do you the first podcast that we edited, we did for free. Because you said to us very openly, very transparently, you said, look, I don't know if you're competent editors. You know, editing our own content on our own YouTube channels is one thing, but when it comes to professional work, you don't know if we can work at that level. So we were more than happy to agree to do the first episode. Each of us took one episode and we edited it. We gave it back to you. You gave us feedback. And that gives you an idea of, okay, do you know what? I think there's room to grow. Or what could have happened, which would be, oh no, that's the biggest train wreck of a podcast I've ever listened to. So having that first one free was important, and it wasn't worthless as exposure quite often is written off to be, but being respected for our time and being paid for our time in turn, it kind of gives us extra motivation to preserve the identity of your business through the work that we're doing. And we want to put in the effort, and we want to, you know, make sure that the podcast sounds professional and sounds good, because we're being paid for that, but also we respect you and your business and want to collaboratively support your business, and putting together a good product is one of the best ways to go about that.
Yeah, absolutely, and I completely agree. And I think it's very important that you mentioned the relationship between what you guys do for me and how it will actually affect Brunton Media, because you guys could just go, oh yeah, we're gonna get paid and we're gonna fuck him. You fucking could. Probably wouldn't be the best idea if you want to continue the working relationship, but you definitely could. And from a long-term payment perspective, it's probably a bad idea. But I think it's important to also understand if you're doing work for someone and they're putting that up on their socials and they're putting that up on their YouTube and they're doing that and it's part of what the podcast to me, like, and I'll come back to the point I was making in a second, but the podcast to me is a way for me to openly talk about what I do without sounding salesy, right? Number one. Number two, the editing process in that is where you fine tune that process. So by me outsourcing that, I have to trust the people doing it because it matters. And by no means are both of you hitting the nail on the head every single episode, right? It's always going to be, whenever you start working with people, it's always going to be a toss-up between, I can save all this time and spend some money, but it won't be as good for a bit, right? Or, I have all this time and I don't need to spend the money, but it will be as good, but I then can't do X, Y, and Z. So, I think it's important for firstly to understand that, number one, but also the way my mindset was I was thinking, where are they going to be in a year? Where are they going to be in 6 months? Where are they going to be in 3 months? And do I want them to help me with my company, or do I want them to become my competitor? Right? In a complete, and you both don't know this yet because I haven't told you that. And that's why I wanted to save it for the podcast. But that's part of it. Now, morally, that's a little bit, okay, yes, I get that. But there's a reason, right? The thing is, you need to, and I'm fully aware that there may be a situation where we stop working together from a perspective, you stop helping me with Brunton Media. That's completely fine, right? But what I would hope was if you're going to do that, you're in a position where you know what you're going to do, you know what you want to do, and we don't necessarily align anymore. As in, I want to take the business this way, and you want to go the other way, right? So, I mean, again, like, there's no question here. A lot of it is just me hearing your reactions and hearing your thoughts. So, yeah, I mean, I'll just throw it back to you and see kind of what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that's really important, as we were discussing about figuring out how each other view business, is, are you looking at the short term or the long term? Are you looking at how right now in this moment, if you charge these people nothing, you can benefit for about 2 months until they get sick and tired of working for nothing and stop working for you? Or are you looking at, hang on a sec, I can see that these two boys, they're not going to stop. As in, it's very clear. Anybody can look at any one of our feeds. I post a video on YouTube once a week. I post a photo every day on Instagram. I haven't stopped that for about a year now. It's very clear that we're interested in growth and are going to be going into business. So are you going to sit back and try and take advantage of us in the short term, and then later on we come and poach all your clients? Or are you going to invest in us, which in turn builds the respect, and we then invest in Brunton Media? It really is the short term versus long term. Are you prepared to sacrifice the now being the podcast, and how the first couple of episodes we did, and to a certain extent the ones that we're doing now, aren't quite at the level that it could be if you were editing it? But that's the small sacrifice in the now, that in the long term, our working professional relationship is one built on mutual respect. And as you say, we don't become competitors, and we don't just become another group of people that you're not working against, but never really working collaboratively with. And I'll chuck it to Willen at that point.
Well, unfortunately, you've just chucked me something I can't catch. I don't really know what I'm talking about in this subject. No, I mean, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. It's coming back to that now and future, isn't it? Like, if you're trying to build a business, or you're trying to progress your business, as it were, if you're going, I know what I can do to benefit me for the next 5 minutes, you're going to have a business for the next 5 minutes. Like, you're not going to continue much longer. You're in one of the podcasts that I recently edited, you were chatting about how you've got to adapt. You've got to be prepared to change, because otherwise you're not gonna die, but your business is gonna die, because things change on the daily. It's something that just happens. Like, one day, like, again, like I was in the podcast that I was just editing, you were chatting about what was it, like how your Instagram could be like terminated, and then you're like, well, what do I do now? You got to think about the future, and you got to understand that not everything you do today is going to benefit you today, and if it is, maybe you're doing the wrong thing, and that's what I really got.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree, and I think it's important for people to think that. And a lot of lockdown, I use the lockdown as an example. First lockdown, anyway, I should probably clarify because there's like 5 at this point. First lockdown for me was a kind of wake up call, because to give that story a background for people who are just listening now who don't know my story, I went full time a month before lockdown went into place with Brunton Media. Brunton Media was my only income, and it's the only way I make money, and then lockdown happens. Oh, great! I have no money for 2 months. Fabulous. That's great news. So, the main thing that it allowed me to learn was, okay, I'm going to work my ass off. Oh, I actually benefited from the thing I did 2 months ago. Nice. Awesome. So, and that's why I think it's great to understand and great to think about, because a lot of people in business, a lot of people in development, a lot of people on socials, a lot of people I imagine you know some of these people from your class, they're like, I want results today, I want results now, I want this, I want this, I want this. So, well, yes, you can have this, this, and this, but are you willing to do all of the other things that actually go involved in getting this, this, and this, right? And also then striving forward and understanding, yes, I'm investing money, time, and energy, because you need to think of them as, it's not just a money conversation. I invest time and energy into you both as well. That's actually more than what I pay you, right? Doesn't matter what I pay, but in regards to time used, I'm probably breaking even from what I'm saving. In regards to the okay, maybe not. I'm actually probably benefiting a little bit, but not as much as people might think, right? Because I'm also helping your development, fully aware and fully okay with the fact that you might go to me and go, actually, I'm going to go create Snowy the Dog Photography Productions, or whatever whatever you want to call it, or whatever your company's going to be called, right? It doesn't matter. And then try and do exactly what you do, because I've just learnt it off you, right? But what I hope, and I'll throw back to you in a sec, but what I hope I build in this relationship is in some level of loyalty. That doesn't mean it has to be forever. It just means there's certain level of respect, certain level of trust, certain level of loyalty in what we're doing as a collective. And I think, to be honest, right now for both of you where you are, the best situation for you is to help me grow Brunton Media so I can keep giving you more things. Correct me if I'm wrong, and feel free to take the reins, but that's how I'm thinking about it. That's how I'm seeing it, right?
Yeah. I mean, we do not have a network of clients, production companies, all that sort of stuff. As we both mentioned, you're about 3 or 4 years ahead in the journey. So you have 3 or 4 years more experience, more clients, more connections. And so in terms of us starting out, it definitely benefits us, because we can talk to you about not only your experience, but whether you know any clients, whether you know any production companies, etc. And it all comes back into it. And something that I wanted to say as well around the short-term, long-term stuff is that if you're only ever reacting to a situation, like whether it's lockdown, whether it's, any form of COVID, whether it's just, your audience isn't there or whatever, if you're only ever reacting, you won't ever be able to take action, because your action is defined by things that happen to you, not things that you decide to pursue. So it really causes an issue. And for us, this was an action. Obviously, we reacted in the sense of, like, you came to us with a proposal, but the mindset of, right, how are we going to go forward? How are we going to move forward with it? It was an action. It was us going, right, this is how we're going to go about it. And I've really enjoyed what we've done together. I think that's come in full circle again. I enjoy working with you, and bringing it back to the sense of loyalty, the sense of respect, all of those sorts of things, not in like a a die hard unhealthy way where I'm going to work my fingers to the bone for you because you gave me a little bit of exposure or something, but we all like each other. And that's something which isn't always present in business, but we all like each other. We all like working with one another. And collaboratively, I think we all work quite well together and we all offer something which each other can benefit from. So the loyalty and the respect is, I actually like this person. I haven't had to sacrifice my left arm just for them to, respect me as a creative. I feel respected, and in turn I give respect back. And it's a very important thing in business. You're never going to work with somebody who you feel like, unless of course you're in a desperate situation and you're reacting, you're never going to work with somebody who you feel like doesn't take you seriously. Because what would be the point? And you've got to take yourself seriously. So yeah, and I'll chuck that over to Willem. But for me, I'm not going to work with you if I don't respect you and I don't feel respected. And because of the fact that we're all respecting each other, I then feel more invested and want to work with you. And quite honestly, foresee us working together for quite a while.
I mean, well, once again, completely forgotten the question, but one thing that I have got from the whole process is more just enjoyment, really. Like, yeah, I get paid, I get help with things. I can always come to you, be like, yo, Brunton, how do I do like a holy grail, for instance? And that brings me on to my next point. Like, we where the enjoyment is, and I guess friendship, if I am so daring, um, we we you like give us a message. You're like, would you like to come down to Andover, for instance, to do a sunrise shoot? We were like, you know what, that sounds really good. But I've never done a sunrise Holy Grail before. I don't believe Sam has. It's one of those things that I've got no knowledge on it, but I can go and spend time with somebody that I enjoy talking to. I enjoy, like learning from. And when we were there, it wasn't like, right, you're going to sit down. I'm going to tell you like 10 things, and then you're going to do a pop quiz, right? And if you don't get it all right, I'm not working with you. It's not what it's like. It's like we're there, we're with you, we're doing our thing, and you're like, do you have any questions? Can I help you? You put it. The thing that I like about the whole relationship arrangement, all of the stuff, is that you're not like, look, this is what I'm doing. You're like, here you go. I'm going to place it in your hands. You do what you want to do. If you want to come to me, you're like, how do I do a holy grail? You give me a message. You give me a call. You don't sit back doing nothing like, yeah, I've got this podcast to edit, so I'm just going to do that and then like send it over and then deal with that. You allow us to take the action that can benefit us, and it comes back to the thing of it's mutual. So go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, if we didn't enjoy working with you, spending time with you, I would not have got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, got on a train to Andover, and stood in the middle of a roundabout till 9 o'clock. It's just, it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened. And building off something that Willen said, the respect that's shown to us is giving us the room to grow. Is not, this is everything you need to do, and just dictating to us how we need to run our creative process, how we need to develop our own businesses, as we're still figuring out what that is. It's standing back, not trying to manage things for us, because that's not help. That just isn't help, and that's not respect either. But when you stand back and you give us space for us to come to you and say, okay, so why are you shooting on manual focus there? It's because I don't want focus hunting or something like that. It's that benefits us so much more than if you were, because it's something which is always difficult in terms of a dynamic between a group when it's very clear that one person is more established and experienced than the other. Because quite often you can fall into a dynamic of like a teacher-student thing, and then that makes a working relationship quite difficult, because it's like, well, what does the student offer the teacher? You know, in that dynamic, the teacher's the one who knows everything, the teacher's the one who's got everything, and the student's just there to learn. But the thing that is not only supportive, respectful, you know, and gains that loyalty is the fact that we all come from it from a perspective of how are we going to collaborate together? What can we offer? You know, and I think even at a base level, just having someone who's prepared to stand next to you at 4 o'clock in the morning on a roundabout in Andover can be quite supportive. You know, and it's like we're asking questions to you, and you're thinking like, oh yeah, and it's the collaborative being open to everybody else's input. It's it's so supportive, and there's such value in outsourcing, even if it was just for that, for being around other people, using them as a soundboard, forgetting the fact that they're actually providing a service for you. You can benefit just from opening up your process to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree, and I think it's important to build. I mean, what jumped to mind when you were talking about that was big productions, your Netflix shows, your TV films, your this, your that. The reason why the crews are so fucking big is because to do something that scale, it takes that many people's brain. It's actually physically not that hard to do. From a physical standpoint, there's a point where a certain number of people are only really going to help, right? Yes, there's only so many number of lights you can move. There's only a certain number of products you can move. There's only a certain amount of talent you can order around to do what you need to do, right? But the reality of the fact is, the reason why you bring certain people on projects and the reason why I may bring you boys on, etc., on bigger projects is because you want their creative understanding. You want their creative understanding. You want their minds. You want their problem-solving skills. Because I'll tell you right now, you will not have a project, a production that does not go to plan. Period. You will have a plan. You will go, awesome, the plan's going to be great. You'll get on shoot and you'll find out you can't use the room you were planning. The light that you thought you were going to use breaks. The battery didn't charge. The talent doesn't show up. You're meant to shoot outside. It's pissing down with rain. That isn't really practical for what you're trying to do. So on, so on, so on, so on, so on. Right? There's 1,000 different things that can go wrong and will go wrong. But it's then up to you as a creative expert, right? I hate the word expert, but for the sake of this conversation, creative expert to fix the problem. The client doesn't give a shit. The client wants the product and is paying you to produce whatever it is you're producing that day. You need to fix the problem. It's your responsibility to fix the problem. And it kind of initiates, I will pass back to you in a moment because I know you want to say something, but and it reminds me of a conversation we had before the podcast, which was specifically when it's go time, you cannot afford to be with people who do not understand it's go time and you don't fuck around, right? There's times where you can talk about something that went wrong or, oh, you said something that hurt my feelings, whatever, fine, right? That's all fine, that's all great, you need to have those conversations. Yes, but there's a time and there's a place, right? And that is not when you're getting paid to provide something or a service or a product for a client that's paying you. Because if I bring you onto a project of mine, and this is going to be not just to you boys, but anyone who's listening to this who I'm thinking of outsourcing to, if I brought you on a project, it's because I trust you to do the job I'm asking you to do, and I will pay you to do that job, but do not, if you can avoid it, give me problems. Because that'll be the fastest way for me not to bring you on the next project. The fastest way. And now I'm going to hand back to whoever wanted to say something, because I know both of you do want to say something.
Right, so I was just going to say, one thing that a YouTuber and this like guy in Atlanta said on one of his videos a while ago was like, when I do music videos, I can do it all of myself. Like I know what I'm doing. I can do it. But the point is, I don't have to. When you have one person who, well, runs an entire company or does an entire project by themselves, you have a very linear understanding and creative flow of what's going to happen. Like you're like, bang, that's what's happening. But when you bring another set of people on, like not specifying numbers, like just a set of people, you have like, even though you can edit, you can do the filming, you can sort the audio, even though you can do all of that, you don't have to. And if you give the audio to somebody, if you give the editing, if you give the filming to somebody else, it's less stress. So immediately you're going to be able to focus on one thing and make this thing the best you can possibly do, instead of being like, yo, I got to do all of this, and you're like, I've got to focus on this. You're just that, and that's what's happening. And I had something else, but I've completely forgotten it. But it's like, where you're talking about, like, you got to have the trust, and you got to have the understanding that if somebody's paying you, don't mess about, otherwise you're going to get dropped. Like, that's just how it is. And hopefully I'll remember by the time that Snow's finished.
Is a very interesting dynamic having three people on a podcast and the sort of like polite way we're interacting with one another. But yeah, I mean, that is part of the process that we all the discovery process around how well we work together is building that trust that when it is go time, as you say, you're not going to have somebody stood there who's causing problems in the moment. You need to be able to work with people who can put not only their egos aside, but also for a short time, their personal feelings around something for the greater good. You need to, it comes back to sacrificing the now. I feel like a broken record, but you need to put everything aside for that moment, because right then in that moment, us, say hypothetically it was the three of us three are working for a specific goal. That goal is that we're providing this product for this client. And if that's the case, there's no mucking about. And that's something that I believe that we're all sort of showing each other through the continuing professional relationship, is that we're not going to mess about. And as I said before the podcast, the time to find out whether or not you work well with a person is not when it's go time. That's the worst time. I know that there are some situations where you might have a crew member fall through and you need to pick someone up on the fly who's able to do it, and it could turn out well, it couldn't, you find out in the moment. But it is really important to understand and to know that the people around you understand that when it's shoot time, it's go time, whatever you want to call it, everybody is going to put themselves aside and work towards the larger picture.
But yeah, no, absolutely, I completely agree, and I think that it's one of those things where a certain set of people will get it or they won't, right? And it's not anyone's fault if you don't get it. You just don't gel with that person, and that's why this discovery process and this finding out, and that's why I gave you a podcast for free. I was like, guys, will you do it for free? Number one, right? That was a mini test in the respect of are you on the same wavelength as me, right? Again, I asked myself, would I, in the scenario where I'm in your position, not my position, do one for free? Yes, I fucking would, because I want to prove the point. I want to prove that I can do it, right? That's the point. And I do stuff for free for people all the time, still now, and I'm nearly 4 years in, right? The point is to prove a point, right? The point is to prove yourself, right? The point is, okay, I'm going to give you something here, right? If you like me working together, you like the product, you like the service, and sometimes styles don't work, right? I've had many clients, potential clients who I do stuff for. We have a conversation. That's why I always say, because a lot of my business model is now becoming monthly retainer stuff, I never offer a monthly retainer unless we've done at least 2 projects. Because the reason why is you don't have any clue what I'm going to be like on a set. You have no idea what the content's going to be like in your context. You can have a look at my showroom and go, oh, that's very lovely. But what people also don't understand, building off another video that's coming out this week, conveniently enough, is, at the time of filming anyway, is the showreel takes a long time to put together. It's like 2 weeks in the making, 3 weeks in the making, right? So you can't use that as your yardstick when you're talking about client work that you expect to happen in a week. Because the showreel from an editing perspective takes me 3 weeks to do, right? There's finding the footage and so on. And I won't go to this topic right now, but the final question I wanted to end this podcast on, because I know that we're all pushed for time, is where do you think either Brunton Media is going to be in a year, right? So this time next year, or where do you think, or both, as in and or, where do you think our working relationship or professional relationship will be?
No, I mean, it's a very good question. And as we've all established, we're all quite forward-thinking people. So look into the future of Brunton Media and both Snowy the Dog Photography and W. Willem 14 within Brunton Media. I think, first of all, Brunton Media, you have spent a long time establishing yourself as video production. You've built the network. You've put in the time with Salisbury. You've developed the relationships with the Salisbury business owners, so that when somebody thinks, I need a promo, I need a Christmas video, I need a, you know, talking head of why people should come and shop at my business, they're going to go to you. And that is the time that you've spent to build that. And how that will snowball is that as your relationships with people, you know, spread, and there's that respect and loyalty that we've all spoken about, you will just continue to expand. So the services that you offer will expand, the network of people that you work with will expand, and the network of people that work for you will expand, because as the demand increases, you will need people who can help you meet that demand. Because at the center of it, Brunton Media is one person, Carlton Brunton. And Carlton Brunton is one person, not a production company. So when it comes to you needing, you know, providing a service of a production company, you're going to need other members on your team, and you're going to need a space to do that in, which we've discussed, you know, as you've discussed in some of your own content, but also people that, you know, that say if it's even off the fly, you know, you need to ring someone up, say like Camera Shy, for example, because I've got COVID-20 and I need to self-isolate for 3 weeks. And, you know, you've got people that you can ring and say, hey, do you know what? I really appreciate it if you could come through and do a bit of camera work for me. And so that's where I see Brunton Media. And in terms of where I see, I'll just talk for myself here. I won't talk for Willen because he'll do that. But where I see myself inside of Brunton Media and alongside Brunton Media would be, what an interesting question. I'm talking about how forward thinking I am, and I'm like, do you know what? That's fascinating. For me, I see myself as just becoming more established as a creative. So as in, you came to us and the first episode of the podcast was, you know, prove yourself. In the future, I hope that I will reach the stage where I don't need to prove myself before getting work, because I've got the show reel. I've got the experience working with you, and you know that you can ring me, and if you need camera work, editing work, audio work, you know, that sort of stuff, you know, because we've worked on our professional relationship, that you can trust that I can provide those services and that I will work well with you. So for me, where I see myself, it's just got to be continuing to create and expand my understanding of creative media production, but also building the relationships, not only with Brunton Media, but potentially some of the people that know Brunton Media, and expanding within Salisbury and helping people understand, like, yes, we're young, you know, and all that sort of stuff, but actually we are interested and invested in not making a splash, because I don't want to sound egotistical, but becoming recognized as trustworthy people who provide a service. And so for me, that's where I see myself, where I see Brunton Media. And with that, I'll pass to Willen.
Well, it's always a bit of a mad question, isn't it? Like, where are we all going to be in a year's time, in 5 years' time? Like, as forward thinking as you can be, you can't predict. Like, I am going to answer the question, but I'm just saying, like, you can't really predict like what's going on in a year or two, because there could be a different pandemic, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this year proved, sorry to cut you off, but this year proved that, right? People had plans. All right, how did that work out for you in 2020? How'd that work out?
Exactly, and I think it's one of those things where you can be as forward thinking as you want, and again, like I said before, you got to adapt and you got to change that. But where I see Brunton Media to start off with, I think as long as you keep the drive that you've got, if you keep your foot flat to the floor, as it were, you're going to be better than you were yesterday. You're going to be better than you are today, and you're going to be a much better than you were, you know, like 2 days into the future by the time you get there. And I think that's the thing. Like, I'm not going to put numbers on it, because I don't want to put a quantitative set of restrictions on it, because if you don't reach within them, you're either going to feel bad because you didn't get what you wanted, or you're like gonna feel amazing because you absolutely annihilated it. But if you don't set a quantitative set of like bars, as it were, you're going to be happy no matter what you do, as long as you're progressing. But I think you're going to have like, whatever happened this year, everything's about momentum. You've got a lot of momentum at the moment, and we've spoken about this before. But you're going to keep going. Like, you're already on one, and you're going to keep going on that like train track, as it were. But the more stops you go to, the more you know what you're doing. So you can apply everything that you've learned before and take this and put it there and be able to like know what you're doing. And I think for Brunton Media, it's going to be like the experience is going to be much, much greater, and the way that you operate and the way that you attack everything that you do is just going to be up there. That's the only way I really know how to answer that question. And I think for me, pretty much the same answer. As long as I got drive, as long as I got the passion for the thing that I'm doing, you know, like, as long as I got trust with the people that I'm working with and with myself, things are going to get better. Everything's going to be calm. Like, things are going to happen. You act on them. You deal with them. You change. You know, and as long as you know that, and as long as you are okay with that, I think everything's going to be sky high. Yeah, Henry.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that for anyone who enjoys the process of growing, changing, improving, all that sort of stuff, I think that is part of all of our appeal. You know, Brunton Media, because you're 3 or 4 years ahead, you're growing and changing in a different way to us, because you're not so much establishing, you're more using the momentum that you created while you were establishing to then execute further into business. But for anyone who's interested in either Willen or I or Brunton Media, what I would say to you is, if you enjoy the creative process of growing, changing, adapting, and hearing people reflect on that and offer their experience, then we're all people that you're going to want to keep your eye on. Because as I can guarantee, every single person sat in this Zoom room, this little virtual room, is going to be unpredictably miles ahead of where they were in a year's time. We're all on that train track. We're all using the momentum that we're building. Willen and I are currently building our train track because of the fact that you're slightly further ahead. You've built it and you're now traveling along it. We are going to be in a completely different situation a year from now, 6 months from now, whatever. The future is always better and brighter for us because we are constantly trying to change the future and act rather than react and take a steering direction in it. So for anyone who wonders what the value is in any of us and what we have to say, it's all about the growth. It is all about how we're going to grow.
Yeah, I think there's a video that I've seen of Kevin Hart. It's like Monday morning motivation, and he's like, wake up, get up, try and be better than you were yesterday. If you're not trying to be better than you were yesterday, go back to bed. Just stop, because you're not going to go anywhere. So why waste your energy on not going anywhere? I think the moment that you stop, or that you go, I'm comfortable, I'm just going to give it a second. That's when you lose what you as Brunton Media have. And I'm not saying you're going to stop. I'm just saying, like, you've got this thing, and you're going with it, and it's working. So don't stop, you know. And I'm trying to figure out what my thing is. Like, I don't know what it is. I've no clue what it is. I'm trying to figure out what it is. And as soon as I know what it is, that's what I'm gonna attack. I'm not gonna be like, I'm just gonna get on with this. I'm gonna absolutely, like, annihilate it. I'm just gonna go head first at it, because if there's something behind a brick wall that I want to get to, nothing in my, like, I will stop at nothing, or at least I hope this is true. I will stop at nothing to put my head through the brick wall to get to the thing that I want. And I feel like that's what you've got, Brunton, and I feel like that's what I have, and I feel like that's what Sam has as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a beautiful ending point to end on, number one. But number two, I think just building off that briefly, it's this, and I can't ascribe it to someone, but it's this inherent, I'm not good enough still yet, even though I've done X, Y, Z, even though I'm where I dream to be year 1, year 2, year 3, right? And it's this constant, you need to adapt, you need to change, you need to pivot, you need to, whatever you want to call it, it's this constant push to, you are worth more than what you are currently worth now. The reality of the fact is, there will be clients who I can't work for anymore, unfortunately, because I feel like my value and my understanding, my skill, my brand, whatever, is worth more money than they have to spend. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just called progression. That's called business. That's called, at the end of the day, a service requires, there's a cost attached to that service, right? If that service becomes better and better and better and better and better, you expect the cost to go up and up and up and up and up, right? It's the same where, you don't expect a meal from a 1-class restaurant to be the same as in cost from a 5-star restaurant, because the quality should be different. In a world where the quality isn't, and you paid 5 times as much, okay, that's a different conversation, right? But if you're, and building off the last point, if you have this hunger and this drive and this fire, you see every single fork in the road or problem or lockdown or whatever it is as a challenge to overcome. It's not there's this thing I can't obtain, it's a, solid sheet of metal in the way or whatever it is. These are just things that, okay, this is the situation right now, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do. I still have 24 hours a day, even if I can't go out of my house, right? If I'm not allowed out of my house, still have the same amount of hours a day. How am I going to it's just more challenging on how can I spend those hours that I'm going to spend working productively, right? I can still spend them productively, but do I or you or whoever understand how I can spend those productively? Do I understand, am I willing to step up to that challenge? Am I willing to step up to to whatever it is I need to step up to continue to be successful or continue to grow or continue to do this? And I think that's what 2020 has shown a lot of people. I can personally say that's what it's shown me, is you make your own decisions. You are the reason in most cases. Again, it's different if you're in a difficult situation, like if you're in retail and you're forced to shut down every 2 months. Yes, but what are you doing when you are shut down to mean that you're better tomorrow, next week, next month, next year? Build that brand, build that business, build those other revenue streams that you could spend that aren't so reliant on you having a shop front, right? And are you willing to do that? Is your priorities in that? Because some people's priorities are not with that. That's the reality. Some people's priorities are, I want to spend time with family. I've done my career, right? But you have to ask yourself that question. So for those who are listening to the podcast and got this far, who are interested in seeing more of your work, seeing what you do, etc., where can people find you?
So for me, I am Snowy the Dog Photography on Instagram. I'm Snowy the Dog Photography on YouTube. And just come be part of the journey, because Willen and I both are right in the middle of our origin story right now. And everybody loves an origin story. Everyone knows how sick The Dark Knight was and The Dark Knight Returns, but you got to start at Batman Begins. So come join us and come share in the collaborative creative process. Creativity is infinite potential. So if you're someone who enjoys just taking enjoyment from life and who wants to see creativity realized, just come follow us and connect with us. I'm more than happy to work with anybody who reaches out to me, and just come collaborate with us and be part of our journey.
All right, first off, if you just made it through an hour and 10 minutes of us talking, big ups, fair play to you. Thank you for that. But I am on YouTube, WWillen14. Check the spelling in the description because it will be fairly difficult to remember. I am the real WWillen14 on Twitter, the real W Willen 14 on Instagram, and that's it. You can't find me anywhere else. So yeah. But thank you.
Yeah, good podcast. Lovely to work with you as always.
Absolutely. No, thank you for coming on, guys. Thank you for your time as always. And yeah, I think we covered a lot. I think it was good. And yeah.
Done, fam. By the way, Sam, when you're editing this, when you said the greater good, I also said the greater good. So you're gonna have to cut that.
I hope you did enjoy that wonderful hour and a bit conversation with me and the boys. I hope you did take some value from it and sort of learnt some things about outsourcing and my mindset when it comes to outsourcing as well. Thank you so much for getting to the end of this episode. If you did enjoy it, then make sure to leave it with a like. I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section down below as always. And I'll see you very, very soon for a brand new episode of the podcast. We've got some killer guests coming on this year, and I'll see you very, very soon.